big news out of the White House today about the president declaring a national emergency.
I'm going to be signing a national emergency, and it's been signed many times before. It's been signed by other presidents. There's rarely been a problem. They sign it. Nobody cares. I'll sign the final papers as soon as I get into the Oval Office, and we will then be sued, and they will sue us in the Ninth Circuit, even though it shouldn't be there, and we will possibly get a bad ruling, and then we'll get another bad ruling, and then we'll end up in the Supreme Court, and hopefully we'll get a fair shake, and we'll win in the Supreme Court.
Wasn't exactly conjunction junction, what's your function, but it was a little sing-songy there from the president as he laid out the process as he sees it from the Rose Garden. Let's bring in our panel. Guy Benson, political editor at townhall.com. We welcome Victor Davis Hanson, fellow at the Hoover Institution, and Jim Messina, former Obama White House Deputy Chief of Staff. Gentlemen, thanks for being here. Victor, let me start with you. Critics say this is unnecessary and shouldn't be done. The president laid out his justification for doing it. Your thoughts?
I think it's mostly a matter of semantics. I think if he had just said, I have a pen and I have a phone, and the Congress didn't act in a way in the interest of the United States, so there's money in DOD, there's money in Homeland Security, EPA, Department of Interior, and incrementally and gradually he could reallot those funds rather than making it so dramatic. But I think the news cycle is going to go on, and it's not going to be the big psychodrama that everybody thinks.
Jim, to Victor's point, President Obama used the pen and his phone. Past presidents, as far as wall construction, Bill Clinton, 20 miles of fencing, George Bush, 124, Barack Obama, 97 miles, 14 miles in San Diego, 48 miles in the Rio Grande Valley, and Donald Trump wants to keep on building. Your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think the question is how, right? Article 1 of the Constitution says that the Congress is supposed to dole out the money here, and he's using emergency powers. Even during his press conference, Brett, he said he didn't need to do this. He just wanted to speed it up. That is the definition of not of an emergency. I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. You know, this is a troubling move by a president. The framers put together a Constitution to make sure that there was separation of powers and not to have kings. And I think the president's right. He's going to spend a lot of time in court.
Guy?
Well, I think this is politically questionable. If you look at the polling, by a 2-to-1 margin in many of the polls, the public is opposed to this emergency declaration for this purpose. And I think it's legally dubious. I'm not a lawyer, but reading some of the legal eagles on this, I think it's interesting to sort of track the trajectory when it comes to statutes and sort of how we've gotten to this point through precedent and that sort of thing. To me, though, the salient question is, why is this different? Why is this new? The president just had a fight with Congress over appropriations. They debated exactly this point. The Congress decided what they would and would not give the president on the wall, and now he is trying to make an end run around Congress to get some more money that he felt that he wanted that he didn't get, and that shouldn't be how the Constitution works. And I think at the very least this appears to be extra constitutional, and frankly, as a conservative, I hope he loses in court on this, because I do not want a precedent where presidents can get rejected or stymied by Congress and go ahead and do whatever they want anyhow.
Victor, as far as the big picture, a lot of people look at this as a horse race, who's winning, who's losing at any given moment. After the State of the Union address, the president's approval numbers went up as he laid out his case to the American people. How do you see it as far as this big issue of immigration?
Yeah, well, I don't think he needed to make such a big deal out of it, because the news cycle was going all his way. There was the Green Deal fiasco, the Virginia circus, talk of abolishing ICE, this Amazon debacle as well in Queens, and people were starting to see that this new progressive alternative wasn't very viable and it wasn't very popular, and Trump was a beneficiary of that cycle, especially when he gave a pretty good State of the Union address, and he's been pretty sober and judicious for Trump. So I think it would have been much better just to rearrange funds here and there and not elevate the question to whether the president have emergency powers. I'm a little bit more cynical than your other guests. I remember Barack Obama was not going to get a two-thirds majority in the Senate for the Iran treaty, so he just simply changed the nomenclature and said it's an Iran deal, and nobody on the left cared. And I'm not sure whether it was unconstitutional or not, but he gave blanket amnesties all the time to DACA and Dreamers, and he did it with a pen and phone. So I think it's a little bit psychodramatic to suddenly say the Constitution is in danger.
Well, panel, thank you, Jim. I promise we'll have you back. Sorry for the shortened panel time with the press conference out of Illinois. Thank you very much.